My name's Andrew Lassise, and I'm your host. And with me today is entrepreneur Jesse Harless. Jesse, how are you doing?
I'm great, Andrew. Thanks for having me on. Excited to spend this time with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited, and it's interesting the way that we got in contact with each other was when I was going to start the podcast. I was going to use the name Entrepreneurs in Recovery, and then after doing a quick Google search, I realized Jesse beat me to the punch, and from there we started building a relationship and talking with each other, and then here we are. So Jesse, your book, How Are Cold Showers Going to Change My Life?
Yeah. Wow. That's coming firing right out the gate. Yeah. So I wrote a book called Smash Your Comfort Zone with Cold Showers. And so how are cold showers going to change your life? Well, I'll tell you, just like anything, your life is not going to change overnight with cold showers, but I'll tell you that if you develop the practice of cold showers, and most of you are probably thinking, there's no way I'm going to take a cold shower. I've been taking warm showers for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Why would I take a cold shower? It's wintertime. Well, let me ask you this question. Have you ever done anything that made you uncomfortable before that then once you did it had a major payoff? And I think that's really the big thing is doing something that makes you uncomfortable is what makes you grow. And so cold showers, that's one idea. One principle behind a cold shower is, if you're waking up in the morning, the first thing you're doing is taking a cold shower. I can tell you that any obstacle that comes your way in the day is probably not going to be as tough as that cold shower was. And if it was, it's not going to be as tough. And so that's kind of where the cold showers were born, besides being challenged to cold showers. So what I would say is, we can go in so many directions with the cold shower question, but it's not going to change your life overnight. But I can tell you after the first cold shower, and by the way, you don't have to do it straight cold. You could start with your warm shower. And at the end of the shower, blast the water cold all the way for about 30 to 60 seconds. So you don't have to go straight cold. And I can tell you that you're going to feel some energy after that. And so after doing that over time, we can get into that. It developed a mindset of resilience for me, and there were some other benefits as well.
So what was going through your head the first time? Did somebody else introduce this concept to you, or did you just try it one day and then decided, hey, this is going to change my life in parallel to a whole bunch of other things?
Yeah, so it was a challenge. A friend of mine came over my house. He's a friend that always comes out with these ideas that are just like, where does this come from? And he came over and he said, hey, you need to take 30 days of cold showers. You need to do a 30-day cold shower challenge. And I was like, there's no way I'm doing that. Why would I? It's December 17th. Why would I do? I live in 38 degrees out. Why would I take a cold shower? Like I should be taking a warm shower. He said, no, you need to take cold showers. There's all these benefits. And so I'm like, I was pretty skeptical. But at the time, my roommate decided to run right upstairs, turn the water cold. And he goes, I'm going to do this. And so I ran upstairs. I felt the water. It was freezing cold. I'm like, oh my God. So, he took the cold shower. So I ran back downstairs. I ran to my shower. I said, it's 5 o'clock at night, 5 p.m. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this. So what do I got to lose? I turned the water all the way cold, turned on the music, jumped in, lost my breath for like 30 seconds, because you got to understand in New Hampshire, when it's 38 degrees outside in December, if you have your water all the way cold, dial all the way cold, it's very, very, very cold. So I probably should have kind of eased my way into this, but I just jumped right in. And so I stayed in for a full 5 minutes straight cold. I came out, I was definitely red. But here's the thing is when I came out, I noticed I had more energy, but here's what hooked me is that I went to a meeting about 2 hours later, and I'd always go to this meeting and I'd always feel immediate social anxiety. Like I didn't have it before I went in, but as soon as I get in, I just feel, and I've had this familiar feeling my whole life. I've always struggled with social anxiety. And so this time I sat down in my seat and I noticed something that I didn't have the anxiety. And I'm like, what is going on? The only thing I did was take that cold shower. And so the anxiety never returned for that meeting. And so I'm like, you know what? These cold showers, I'm going to give it the 30 days. I'm going to give it 30 days and see what happens. And so for the next 30 days, I took a straight cold shower every single day, right through Christmas, right into New Year's. And I can tell you what I started to notice was more confidence. I definitely was more resilient. I was working in an intense job, and I was doing an internship for my college. It was the most busiest time of my entire life, hands down. And so I was doing a full-time internship for my master's. I was working full-time as a manager for Verizon. I was sponsoring guys. I was the busiest I've ever been. And I was taking these cold showers. And what I was noticing is that I was more confident at work as a manager. I had way less anxiety. And I was like, well, it was blowing my mind actually. So like, I didn't tell everyone right away because I'm like, I better like test this out first.
Yeah.
And eventually, man, I'll tell you, I ended up winning the highest award Verizon has to offer, which was a paid trip to Switzerland called President's Cabinet. And when I was in Switzerland, I still took the cold showers, and I just haven't stopped. And you know, the biggest thing is what hooked me was the anxiety. That was the first thing. It was like, I don't really understand. And now today I understand, after interviewing people and talking to doctors about this, of what kind of happens in the body and what happens in the mind with the power of cold water. So
that's fascinating. So basically, it was just starting off as, hey, here's a challenge. Just take a shower for 30 days, or a cold shower for 30 days. And the idea behind the cold shower challenge, I'm assuming it was just it's a cold shower challenge. There isn't supposed to be this life-changing effect that it has on you that inspires you to write a book, to have a newfound confidence. All of this was just a result of this silly challenge that seemingly had no purpose to anybody's life other than, hey, take a cold shower. It's pretty uncomfortable.
Exactly. I never thought like a 30-day challenge would change my life. And it's not the only 30-day challenge that's changed my life. And I started to get in the habit of finding other 30-day challenges. But this particular challenge, that 30-day challenge turned into 3 years. It's been 3 years of straight cold showers. And like I said, you don't necessarily have to take a straight cold shower, but I can tell you that there are some benefits of cold water immersion and taking straight cold, but you can take them 60 seconds at the end of your warm shower. You're still going to have benefits, but I had no idea I was going to tear it into a lifestyle habit.
So you said you've done several other 30-day challenges. Any others that sort of stick out as having a bigger impact than some of, say, the less important ones?
Yeah. Some around like health, like I did a 30-day intermittent fasting challenge recently. And like now I intermittent fast all the time. So yeah, like that was another one that was like, wow, my energy really spiked. I feel much better throughout the day, especially earlier in the day. So intermittent fasting is the most immediate one I can think of.
So as far as intermittent fasting goes, is that just you have the 8-hour window a day to eat, or is this one structured a little differently?
What I typically do is I stop eating, at a particular time at night, and then I don't eat again until the next day at around 1 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's probably about a 13, 14-hour window without eating. And, but I mix with it. Sometimes instead of eating a full meal, I might do like some protein, some plant-based protein powder with some water to break the fast at like 11 a.m. And that actually feels a little better than just going to 1 p.m. with no food. But I've done both. The 30-day challenge was definitely straight to 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. And I've done water fast now, like very intense, like a 2 or 3 day water fast. And it's just a kind of another hack, let's say recovery hack to explode your energy. And you would never think that not eating or intermittent fasting would do that, but there's a lot of things you're not told that are really, really good for you.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you bring up recovery as far as doing some of these 30-day challenges. I know for myself, when I first got into recovery, it almost was like a 30-day challenge. It was, well, you just got arrested, you went to jail, had to go to court, and you can go to, or I'm sorry, I didn't go to jail. I was arrested. Then when I went to court, I had a choice of going to jail or to rehab. And the idea of rehab was sort of like one of these 30-day challenges. Like, could I actually go 30 days without drinking? And it almost was a social experiment. Just there was a little more, little extra heat tied to it. What did early recovery look like for you? Did you stumble at all, or did you just take it and run? What did that look like, and what led up to it?
Early recovery for me was a tremendous amount of stress, and I don't and that's probably tremendous is not even enough of a word for it.
Mm-hmm.
I was facing the way I found recovery is I was actually arrested and facing federal felonies and facing 7 years in federal prison. So actually, my mom just actually texted me today. She journaled that time I was arraigned in court in December 22nd, 2005, in a federal court with federal felonies, and she actually journaled that day. And one of the journal entries, she texted me this morning, which is really interesting. It said in the journal entry that she was so grateful that her son didn't have to post bail, that they let him out on Christmas so that he could spend time with his family. And so it just shows you the kind of also the ripple effect we have with our addiction throughout our families' lives or our lives. So that first year was very, very stressful, but it was because I was facing federal felonies. And so that's where and maybe we can go there to the next thing we talk about, but it was a lot of stress. It wasn't just like I was coming off of all these drugs and I didn't go to rehab. I didn't have a drug court. None of that. The court, their prescription was work full time, go see your therapist, go to 12-step groups. Like that was their prescription. So I battled some withdrawals, and I certainly battled a lot of stress because I didn't know until 8 months later that I wasn't going to prison. So I had to face this reality that I was going to go to jail and lose my job and face federal felonies and go to federal prison. And so, yeah, that first year was like, I turned it on. So that's really where the story began, is like, I turned it on. I had a choice, go down this path, relapse, either die or go to jail, or I could just change everything. And I changed everything. And, even to this day, I look back and I started journaling. So if anyone's listening to this, one of the biggest things I can recommend is journal every single day. I have 13 years of journals. I have not stopped journaling since my first year of recovery, which is 13 years ago. And I can tell you, looking back at those journals into today, not only is that those are a good way to write a book, but it's also a good way to look back and say, oh my God, look at my thinking back then in 2006. Look at my thinking in 2010. Look at my thinking in 2019.
It's really interesting you say that. I personally, my journaling is very, very minimal. But as far as how your thinking was, I remember I had a folder that they gave me when I went to treatment about 6 years ago. And in the treatment, I was doing journaling. And I remember looking over it, and I was just talking about some of the people there and the narcissism. It said something to the effect, and I got rid of it after I got married. So I don't have it to shrine and publish, but it was something to the effect of, there's a new girl here. Her name's Chelsea. She wants to bone. And thinking back of that's how my brain worked.
Mm-hmm.
And it couldn't have been any further from the truth. Or maybe, the people in rehab are pretty sick. So maybe she did have a thing for me. But just reading back on how my brain was working before I got sober and before I got clean, and just everything revolves around me. So you've taken it by the reins. And did you have any slips, or was it 100% I got in, I got connected, I made this happen because I was not going to jail? Or did you just have like a lot of people with the ups and downs in the beginning?
I couldn't have the ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
The judge said to me on my trial date, on my date when it all came together, when I settled on what the plea was going to be, he said to me, I actually in court. So on the day I was arraigned on the day when I was arraigned in court, I went in there and I at that point I had a 1 year of recovery now, because they had pushed my trial. They had pushed this a year off. And so when I finally get in, they asked if I wanted to say anything beforehand. I said, yes, I do. And so when I got up to the the podium, and Judge said, do you have anything to say? I said, I actually do. I said, I want to let you know that in the last year, well, first of all, I've just celebrated a year of recovery, and, I've got a mentor now. I'm doing all these things, and I'm doing well at work, and I'm back, and I'm rolling back in college. And he said to me, and I can't wait to get these transcripts, because I think you can get them from the court. But he said to me, hey, that's great. I'm glad, I'm happy you found the 12-step groups and all that stuff. But he goes, if I see you back in this court, you're going to do your time. So it was a very, very explicit message. Like, if you drink, if you drug, if you go back to that lifestyle, you are going to face your time. Because the reality is you still have those felonies. So it was very clear to me that that wasn't an option. Now, of course, I could do anything I want. I have free will, but I knew that would cause destruction, and it would cause, so that was helpful to have that. I know a lot of listeners are probably going, well, I didn't have that. I didn't have like federal felonies hanging over my head. And, I just hit an emotional bottom. And it's like, well, let me ask you this question. How low do you need to go? What bottom do you need to hit before you'll stop? And what I'm saying is you can stop now. Don't let your bottom become a new bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I've noticed, a lot of the teachings that John Maxwell does, a lot of it's in leadership. And if you see, like, behind me, in my office, we do a weekly mastermind of the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. And he also has a really good book on the 15 invaluable laws of growth. And a lot of the ongoing characteristics of these things are, you have to be self-motivated to want to grow on your own without having that outside force pushing you. And from what I see with a lot of people in recovery, there isn't the outside force that's forcing them to have to get sober. Because I know for myself, people have been telling me for years, I need to cool it. I need to slow down. I need to stop drinking. Hey, it's Wednesday afternoon. You're at work. Is now the time to be blacked out? Well, even though I was getting the warning signs, it wasn't until I got a DUI, blew a .24, got a breathalyzer put in my car. My lawyer said, put a breathalyzer in your car before we go to court, so that way when we go to court, we can show them that you're not drinking and driving anymore. It was just a one-time thing. And normal people would think, well, I got a DUI, I have a breathalyzer in my car, now I really should cool it. But I still did it anyway. I gave myself 3 more marks. I failed my own breathalyzer that I put in my car before I went to court to prove that I'm not drinking and driving anymore. So the pain, it wasn't great enough. And the outside forces, even though I knew I had the facts that drinking and doing all sorts of other substances was not going to make my life any better, but I just couldn't stop regardless of the consequences. So do you ever see that with people in your area, people that know that they need to stop, but then just the thought of stopping because there isn't enough outside force, just it can't force them to get it?
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time, right? I mean, your brain, the way drugs and alcohol affect the brain. I mean, it's not just simply like, hey, I'm just going to stop all this. I'm just going to start reading books and I'm going to start attending seminars and I'm better. Like, that's not how this works. Like, your brain, after a time of repeated hits of cocaine or heroin or fentanyl nowadays or alcohol, it doesn't just all of a sudden one day go, hey, I'm just going to change everything and just switch over to something that's positive. That's not what happens. So the brain, it needs something that is going to be a hit as hard as the dopamine was hitting with drugs and alcohol. And that's not easy to find, right? So for me, the scare and the pain of going to prison and watching my family bawl their eyes out those days in court when they saw me coming chained at my hands and my ankles was enough to say, I got to change this. Like I was asleep. I was not awake to myself, to the world. I need to change. That was enough for me. But for others, yeah, if they're not facing something, a lot of times it can be challenging. But here's the thing is there is hope. And where that starts is it starts with an awareness that we're enough. Like that just because I feel like shit and I have low self-esteem, hopefully I can swear on this podcast. I don't know, but you have low self-esteem. There you go. That you have a purpose, that you have a reason for being here, and that even your story is many things that you did in your past, that can all be used for the good. And so that you don't have to, like I said, create this circumstance where you are getting arrested or something is happening to that point. So like, what does it take for someone who doesn't have those consequences hanging over their head to then say, I need to change and there has to be something better? Well, to me, it's a better future. It's what is a more positive emerging future that I can look towards, that I can live for, versus what has happened in my past. Because a lot of times we're living in the past or worrying about a future that's not a positive future. And so we're not in the present moment planning what the future is going to be. And maybe we haven't been taught that. And that's why I love podcasts. And that's why I love, getting out there, going to treatment centers and going to groups and motivating groups, saying, hey, let's focus on your purpose and strengths and setting goals so that you don't have to repeat history over and over again.
So how did Entrepreneurs in Recovery, how did that all start?
So, I mean, Entrepreneurs in Recovery, okay, so it's like a lifetime. It's like 10 years of recovery I go through, and I'm listening to what the world told me to do. The world was basically like, get a great job, get a 401k, and go to college. That's what I was told. That's what everyone told me. That's what my family, and that's okay, right? In some ways, because that's all they know. But eventually what happened is around the 10-year mark of my recovery is I read a book, and I read a bunch of books, but like I read some books and I started to realize like there's these entrepreneurs out in the world, and they're the ones really making a lot of the change happen. And it just was a foreign thing to me, an entrepreneur. So what I did was I went to a mastermind. I went to not a mastermind, but I went to like a seminar. I got to a get together, about 200 people. And I had just landed my dream job at Verizon, by the way. So I had just worked 13 years. At this point, I had worked 11 years, let's say 12 years to get this dream job. And I got into this position, and then I go to this event, and this event is mostly entrepreneurs. And I'm literally like, what is going on here? Like, are you telling me these people in this room created some type of business and then work towards that business? And not only did they pay their bills, they're actually thriving. Like, how do you do that? Like, I've worked for other people and had a lot of success. Now, and so I was really fascinated. So by the end of that seminar, I was like, wait a minute, I need to ask more questions. Like, where can I learn more? And they were like, oh, we have another event in December. And I was like, all right, sign me up. But I was still in that dream job. I just started. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to crush it at my job. And I did. I went in but I went to that second event, and then all of a sudden that seed got planted way deeper. What I did is I hired a coach. Now, I hired a coach before this because I had this idea in my head that a coach might be able to help me. So I hired like a life coach. And so now I have a life coach. I'm attending this second seminar, and then I joined a mastermind. So 2017, January, I joined a mastermind. And in this mastermind, it's for entrepreneurs, right? And so I go there in March of 2017, and I'm like, okay, I'm sold. Like, I'm sold on this entrepreneur, but I'm still in a job. Like, how do you even start? What would the business be? Like, how do you start a business? How does it all begin? So these ideas started getting into my head, like, all right, I really want to be an entrepreneur. So here's what I did in March of 2017. I set a goal. I said, okay, you know what? And I wrote it down actually, and I texted it to someone, and it was my biggest goal. I actually have it next to me. I always keep it next to me since that time. I wrote the biggest goal of the year of 2017 was going to be leave my 9-to-5 job, be my own boss. That was the goal. And then I put a date, August 30th, 2017. I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea what I was going to do. I said, maybe I'll write a book or something, and then maybe I'll do something from there, maybe coaching or something. So by April of 2017, this idea came to me after a meditation of a name, Entrepreneurs in Recovery. It was just
Wow.
clear. It was like Entrepreneurs in Recovery. I Googled it. I searched. No one was using it. I said, that's the name of my business. I mind map. The mind map of my business is still hanging on my wall. I mind map in that April of 2017. I mind mapped the whole business, which was going to be podcast, right? A podcast going to be life coaching. It was going to be events. It was going to be a book. It was going to be a self-help memoir that helps people. It's like all this stuff. And so August 25th, 2017, I left my job. I pulled it off. I left the job. I went all in. I sold my house. I went all in because the gifts of recovery were, I ended up buying my first home. You know, all these gifts started happening, right? I finished my degree. I finished a master's in counseling. Like I did all these things because I had the felonies. I'm like, I have to do these things. I have to do these things. It turns out I didn't have to do those things. But for me, I did have to do them. I convinced myself. And so by August, I had left the job. Now I'm on my own. Now it's real. And now the money that I have is going to be spent unless I make money. I sold the home to give me a little bit of a nest egg. And then by October, I had attended this training, and this training taught me how to facilitate individuals and groups through a methodology. And that was called LEAF training. And we can get more into that, but this training taught me a methodology. And then what I did was I said, I'm going to take this methodology directly into treatment centers and directly into structured sober living homes. And 7 days after the training, I went right into a structured sober living home, and I took them through this process, and I had a light bulb go off that like, oh my God, there's something to this. And so from that day until today, and I'm kind of skipping ahead, but I continued doing that. And then so that's kind of the backstory of like how I became an entrepreneur. And I can tell you, like, you have to put a big idea out there. You have to write it down. You have to see it every day and say, this is what I'm going to do. And you want to see it every single day to remind yourself. And guess what happens? Your subconscious, your unconscious mind helps to figure it out. It starts to help you figure it out. Like, how is this going to happen? So it's not just you consciously, it's also unconsciously. Like, how can I pull this off? I don't know how I do it. And you know what? Not only did I pull it off, all the opportunities kind of came my way. Like this training came out of nowhere, and I had no idea that would even help me. I did it, and it became the direction I went in. So set big goals.
That's incredible. So you also mentioned that you had read some books. Was there anything in particular that just completely shifted how you saw everything? I got glimpses of, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rich Dad, Poor Dad in there?
Okay, so Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I read as a teenager. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I had actually read that as a teenager before my addiction really kicked in to gear with drugs and alcohol. Trust me, I had other addictions even at 11 and 12 that were pretty baffling, like pornography and gaming addiction. But when I hit, I think I was 17, 18, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so I set off to become a real estate agent. And then I got addicted to cocaine. That's a whole nother story. But Rich Dad, Poor Dad planted the seed about the rat race. And I said, oh my God, I need to get out of this rat race. So that was like a deep seated in my unconscious that I needed to do that, because I had kind of forgot about it until this entrepreneur idea came back in 10 years into my recovery. It came back again like, oh yeah, I want to be financially free. I want to be able to support my family and be able to travel and make massive impact in the world. And so Rich Dad, Poor Dad was a book I read as a teenager. But as far as at the time when I was leaving my job and some of those books, I mean, there was a bunch, but I would say like, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was a really helpful book. Stephen Covey. Let's see, The Leader Who Had No Title, Robin Sharma. That's a great book. That was and these are books I read as an employee. This is before I left the job. These are just planting seeds. And then the book that really was influential was The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. As soon as I read that book and started practicing those practices, which by the way, I'd already been practicing those practices, I just didn't combine them in the morning. Once I combined them in the morning and followed the principles in that book, the practices, that was like, see you later. Like I launched from there. And that was the masterminds I'm telling you, I was alluding to, that I joined. It was part of the authors had these, he had an event in San Diego I went to, and then he had masterminds, and I joined. And so it was all because of that book that I followed this man. Because if you find someone that you like, whether it's a speaker, a book, an author, follow them, get interested, get curious, get on their mailing list, like find out more about them, see, and then you can really get into their world and say, success leaves clues, right? So like, how did these people become successful? And you can follow their path that they took. And I started to learn from this Hal Elrod guy, and eventually, I'm still friends with Hal today. He promoted my new book. If you read my book, he promoted my book, and so that's kind of a dream come true in some ways, right? Like, this is a guy, when I was an employee, I read his book, didn't know who he was, and then all of a sudden, last November, he promotes my book, right? So it's really interesting.
That's incredible. So what prompted you to write the book?
Yeah, well, so when I started taking the cold showers and I started telling people about them, they'd be like, okay, all right, a cold shower, like, you have a lot of energy, and like, I think I'm going to try it. But the real reason why I'm so interested in this is because it helped you overcome anxiety and all these things. And like, they were like, why don't you write a book about this? Like, we've never heard about this. Like, you can Google search cold showers, but we don't hear the things you're talking about. So like, could you write a book? And I was like, well, I guess so. And in that March 2017 mastermind, those people were saying that to me. And so I decided to write a book, and in 3 months I had the book written.
Wow.
But the but is that I had the book written, and then what happened, fear, perfectionism kicked in, and resistance. And my mind said, who am I to release a book about cold showers? I'm not an expert in this. And so I had to interview an expert who studied it for 35 years. And I still didn't release the book after that. And the book sat from January 2018 to August 20. I was going to delete the book. And in August of 2018, over a year later, I saw the same people again, and they said, hey, what's up with your book? And I got that punch in the stomach. You ever get that punch in the stomach when
yeah,
man, that project is unfinished. That loop was never closed. And I either got to delete that book or I got to finish it. And so August of last year, 2018, I said, that book has to be finished no matter what. And I wrote from August until the published date, which was 11/11/2018. And that's how people asked me about it. And I said, okay, I'll write one.
That's incredible. So I guess, since you said there weren't a whole lot of other sources about cold showers, could we say that you are the guy who wrote the book on cold showers? Do you get that title?
There's definitely other cold shower books on Amazon. So, but I would say that my book, I did read all of those books. Mm-hmm. And I could say that my book is unique in the sense that I came from a background of addiction recovery. So I come back from, I'm writing in the lens from someone who went from a hopeless state, who found tools, and then found another habit later into his recovery that took his recovery to the next level. And everyone who knows me knows that this is true, that you could have talked to me 3 years ago before the cold shower habit. And I was a driven person, but you would say, yeah, he's more introverted though. He's a more introverted guy. I went from introverted, and I still am. I'm like an introvert extrovert. Like, I still need my silence. I still need my time alone. But doing that habit made me much more extroverted. Like, cold showers made me more confident to tackle fears and get me in front of stages and all these things. That habit alone made me a more confident person. So, yeah, I don't even remember the original question, but
no, that's incredible though. So what would you say has been one of the biggest things that's pushed you forward in your career? Is it the mastermind and having the accountability of people pushing you to go past where you think you can go? Or is it actually boiling down to cold showers and then building from what that brings into your life? What would you say is really separating you from the pack? Because we wouldn't be having this conversation if you were just middle of the road guy. So what is it you think that's sort of your secret sauce to being more successful than the average Joe who says, oh, Jesse, well, he's got what he's got because of reasons X, Y, and Z, and I could do that too. What makes your situation different?
There's a couple of things that come up for me when you ask that. One is purpose. I have a mission. I have
I
a
love that.
purpose. And my purpose, if you know me, if you've met me, I'm super passionate about this purpose. And so my purpose, I have a purpose statement, but I'll just tell you the mission of Entrepreneurs in Recovery. The mission of Entrepreneurs in Recovery is to elevate the lives of people in addiction recovery who might be lost, stuck, and lack direction to gain clarity in order to create a vision to live a life on purpose. So that is what gets me out of bed in the morning, is because I've had a lot of people over the last few years tell me, oh man, what you said at this time really motivated me to kick it into gear, to read this book, to get that job, to start visualizing, to start doing this, to start doing that. When I heard this enough times, I said, I have a purpose here. My purpose is to show people that regardless if you have felonies, regardless if you have addiction, whatever it is that you want to use to hold you back, that it can happen, because I did it. And so that was some, I was really playing small, and I didn't let my story really be used as a tool like I do today, because I thought everyone was like this. Oh, everyone has all these, and that's not true. Not
Yeah.
everyone has that. So
Yeah.
take your story and you need to use that to fuel you, and you need to study that story and the people you've helped and influenced to see, where is my purpose. And my purpose clearly was to empower people in addiction recovery. And I call my business Entrepreneurs in Recovery because I'm empowered by entrepreneurship, because I'm empowered by freedom. I'm motivated by freedom. So that brings me to my second point. Purpose is number one, freedom's number two. So getting in recovery from drugs and alcohol gave me freedom I never had. I was locked in darkness from 18 to 22. I didn't have to do drugs and alcohol for 10 years, and 4 years was what it took. And I was on a rapid destructive course. And so I can tell you that freedom, I experienced it when I first got into recovery, and I experienced it again as an entrepreneur. And I can tell you that freedom is priceless, to be able to wake up every day and say, oh, what am I doing today? Well, I guess what, I'm working towards my top 3 to 5 goals this year that are in alignment with my mission, which is entrepreneur recovery. And that's very, very powerful. And you don't have to have your own business to have that vision. You could literally work for someone and be like, yeah, my vision is to buy my family a new home by September. So I'm going to do that with my job. So it's really getting clear on what your purpose is. And then if you want to have freedom, define what freedom is for you. So really purpose and freedom are the big two.
That's great. So you have another book that are you currently working on?
Yeah. So I have another book that is, I don't have if you want the working title, which is like probably going to change completely. It's called An Entrepreneur's Recovery Guide to Reframing Fear: How Focus, Exercise, Affirmations, Recording, and Silence Can Turn Fears into Freedom. So there's a lot there, but the book is essentially a self-help memoir. So the book opens up with my story for the first 2 chapters in detail. Okay, if you ever read the book, David Goggins' new book,
Love that.
Can't Hurt Me. Like, his story is just, oh my God, it's so powerful. It just punches you right in the mouth right away. You're like, oh my God, this is so powerful. Well, my story is, I'm not saying I'm comparing to David Goggins. What I'm saying is my story is the beginning of the book. So you're getting my story. Like, I don't hold back. All of the story is in there in the first 3 chapters. So you can actually, if you buy the book when it comes out, you just skip the first 3 chapters, get right to the solution. But the first 3 chapters are my story. And then the next 7 chapters are the solution, you could say. And so, and when I say the solution, I mean my solution that I found that helped me to get into a mindset of success in recovery and entrepreneurship in recovery. And so that's the book. It's really telling you how, so it's an acronym, and the acronym is FEARS. If you didn't pick up on that, like my subtitle, that's an acronym that stands for FEARS. And my saying is, have you worked through your fears today? And FEARS is a set of 5 practices that you do. And so the F is focus on your recovery. Number 1, if you don't focus on your recovery, you don't have recovery. period. If you don't wake up every day and say recovery is number one, you don't have recovery. You probably will relapse eventually. I've never seen that not be true, by the way. If people don't put it first, I just don't see people staying successful without putting that number one. So focus, and I'm sure you can relate to that too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they say what you put in front of your recovery is the first thing to go. And since a lot of it's progressive too, we don't even realize it's not just a one day I made this decision and I decided to put work ahead of recovery. I decided to put whatever it is ahead of it. And then, you can coast by for a month, 2 year, who knows? But eventually it does start eating away. One of the analogies that I like to use, it's sort of like you have a credit card, but you don't know how much limit is on it. So every time you swipe it, you need to be doing something for your recovery, whether it's going to a meeting, helping a newcomer, something that's good for your recovery. And that builds the balance in your credit card. And you get to swipe it when you make a decision just in life in general. Like you said, you got a house as a result of recovery, and that was one of the swipes, but you had to build up the balance in that account in order to get to that point. And so when you've built up enough over time, you can kind of just lose sight of, well, I'm not going to do what I did to build this account because it's eating into my vacation time. I could be going on a whole lot more vacations if I just stopped going to meetings, if I stopped helping other people. It's really eating into my time. And then the thing is, you get a good life because of your recovery, not in spite of your recovery. So when you put that first, everything else falls into place. And when you lose sight of it, everything falls by the wayside. And it's usually a very abrupt, everything comes crashing down, which usually is right around the time somebody picks up, goes back out, what have you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why F is focus on your recovery. Number one, like if you don't have that, you'll lose it. You're going to end up losing what you want. Now, let's say if you're reading my book and you're like, well, I'm not in addiction recovery. Well, that's okay too, because it could be focus on your purpose, focus on your mission. So it's not just focus. To me, it's focus on your recovery, number one, but then it's focus on your purpose and focus on your mission. So that's F, focus. So focus on your purpose, focus on your mission, recovery, of course. Exercise your mind and body. That's E. Exercise your mind and body. What does exercise your mind mean? It means to start to visualize your goals, start to visualize your future. It also means start to listen to podcasts, start to listen to audiobooks, exercise your mind, do affirmations. You want to start to reprogram your unconscious mind. Well, start saying affirmations daily, and you'll start to, when you say, man, well, I can't control my thoughts are crazy. Well, that's not true. Your thoughts are going to be crazy. Of course, you're like 60,000 thoughts a day, but you could also bring in new empowering thoughts through affirmations to help to reprogram a lot of your thinking. And so exercise your mind, and then exercise your body is pretty much a given, right? Get outside, take a walk, take a jog, buy a rebounder, jump on your rebounder, do jumping jacks, take cold showers, get moving, exercise your body. Okay. And also, it also comes into nutrition. Pay attention to the food going into your mouth, because everything you put in your mouth has an exact, you pay a price for it energetically. So if you put something in your body that depletes your energy, well, you're not going to have the energy enough to go and complete the goals. So start to pay attention to what you're putting in your body. So exercise your body. And then I'll be quick on these. So A is I just changed it, but it's appreciate your strengths. Appreciate your strengths. You have these strengths, okay? Some people call them God-given, or you made them yourselves, or whatever, but you have these strengths. Appreciate those strengths that you have and leverage your strengths to help you to achieve your goals, to achieve your mission, to help you use those strengths when you were out there drinking and doing drugs, because you use those strengths to manipulate people to get what you wanted. So use some of those strengths. Those are not your only strengths, but use the strengths to start to build the life you want. So appreciate your strength. appreciate people around you, have gratitude. So it's also that part is gratitude. And then R is record your day. Record your day, which is journal your day. Record your goals. Record your goals. Write your goals down. Don't have them in your head. Write your goals and record your goals. And then finally, S is silence and serenity. Silence and serenity. So if I don't have silence in my life, I wouldn't even have recovery. I'm going to be straight. Like if I don't have silence, some mindfulness, some meditation, some whatever you want, maybe it's prayer for you, whatever it is. If I don't have that in my life daily, I unravel all these things that I've put together. So I need to have silence. I need to sit with myself in the morning, have some meditation time, have some time at night, silence. And then serenity is just simply find things that bring you peace. So it's more just along the lines of the same thing. And by the way, by the time the book comes out, it might even be silence and serenity, but for now, that's what it is. And so as I continue to write, we'll see what it turns into, but that's a practice. If you follow those 5 practices, it would completely change your life. I've done those practices since I've come into recovery, and I have now realize like if you follow those type of practices, you can also build a life that you want. And so my friends have also have had these experiences using a lot of these principles. So that's the book. And so don't ask me when it's coming out because I don't know right now, but I would say I just released the cold shower book, right? So let's see when that book's coming out. Stay tuned.
Yeah, well, now you've got it out into the universe, and this will be published all over the interwebs. Yeah. And I'm sure there will be some person somewhere that hears something that really resonates with them because, you know, what you're doing. And one of the things that you're not even really touching on, though, is that this is extremely selfless. The value that you're bringing to other people. This wasn't just Jesse woke up and decided, I'm going to get rich selling people on these ideas. I mean, these are things that you're practicing in your own life, that you are seeing the results. You give these teachings to other people, they see results also. So it's not just I started a business because I got to hustle, but you're actually helping other people, which is really, really, it's an incredible thing because especially for people in recovery, and maybe it's just the area that I live in, but I'm sure it's not just isolated to us, but there's a lot of people that they will get sober and then while they may not be doing drugs or drinking and things like that, the stuff that they're doing outside, it's not things that they would be proud to tell people that they're doing. And usually it comes down to greed, money, some sort of security that they think that they get. But I don't know what it looks like up where you guys are, but patient brokering down here, does that happen up there at all? Or is that just more of a Florida term?
I've heard it the most from Florida, but I don't know if it happens up here. I'm not sure. I've definitely heard a lot of it down there and not here, but in any event, yeah, I mean, giving yourself, you know, just because we get in recovery doesn't mean we still don't have a lot of work to do. And so that's really key, is to like doing work on yourself, tons of self-care, doing the work that you need to do to clear that out. Because if you don't, you're just going to find a cross addiction. You're going to find addiction to money. You're going to find addiction to sex. You're going to find addiction to food. You're going to find addiction to something that's going to help you numb out again. Mm-hmm. And so that's not ideal, right? We don't want to replace one thing because we're going to live with regret. We don't want that. We want to have a fulfilling life in recovery. And to do that, you got to get clear on your values. How do you get clear on your values? You got to do a lot of work on yourself. And for some people, the journey's the 12 steps. For other people, it could be a journey through meditation and yoga. My really good friend, George, I mean, he built a meditation and yoga business that he's now, it's starting to really thrive. And he has this other business called Nourish, which involves yoga, meditation, and plant-based eating all together. And he does it in these pop-up events. It's really, really brilliant. You might want to have him on, but he essentially
send me the introduction.
I will. And so he, you know, it's what are your values, right? And what are those things that can help you to clear away some of that wreckage of the past. So whatever it is for you, but find what it is, find a mentor, find someone you can follow. Because one of the things I didn't mention is literally the month I got into recovery, my month 1 of sobriety, let's say, I found a mentor. And I can't stress that enough. Finding mentors, like find someone you can look up to, find people you can talk to, build your recovery team. This is also in my book as well, like building your recovery team. Like, who are the 5 people on your recovery team? If you can't tell me 5 people on your recovery team, I'm very concerned for your recovery, because you should have 5 go-to people. I have 5 people. I probably have 10 now. And I'm grateful for that, because when I first got in recovery, I had like 2 people. But now I have a bunch of people. And I can tell you there's immediately 5 people that come to mind that are on my recovery team. So you better be building that recovery team, so that when your thoughts and your depression from the past, or things are going to start to crop back up, anxiety, all these things, you need to have people you can text and call immediately, not 2 weeks from now, like today. And if you don't have that, that's my challenge for all the listeners. Like, have that recovery team right now. Get a list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who are those 5 people on the recovery team? You better have their numbers too. Like, you better be able to reach out to them. I don't want you to make that list and be like, well, I haven't called this guy in 6 months, but he's on my recovery team. That guy's not on your recovery team.
He's not on your team.
So you need people you can call immediately. Have those 5 people.
I love it. Yeah, because one of the things that they really harp on is that we don't do this alone. We don't recover just from reading a book and getting self-knowledge on the topic.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much like exercise, and entrepreneurship can work the same way. I'd like that you touch on, you should be getting a mentor. You should be getting someone that's pointing you in the right direction, because a lot of times we have these ideas in our head. And what I've found a lot when I do coaching with clients is my job is really easy. I'll just ask the questions. For example, one of my clients who's been with me for a pretty long time, the other day we were having a discussion, and it was just like, okay, what's working, what's not working? Okay, this happened, da 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 da. And long story short, we boil down, he was buying, he sells TVs, and he was buying them from somebody else that was getting them from a wholesaler. And I just asked the question, how difficult is it to get in with the wholesaler? Because you know that you're paying a premium through the middleman. And he was, I've never really looked into it. And I was like, okay, that's what the goal is going to be for the next time we talk. And it turns out it was a 5-minute phone call. This guy's making an extra, a normal person's salary plus per year because of a 5-minute phone call. But the thing is, he had that in his head, but nobody was giving him the motivation to push forward with it. And with things like diet and exercise, it's not difficult to get healthy. If you eat healthy and you exercise, you watch your calories, carbs, whatever thing you're subscribing to. But big picture, if you eat less than you use, you will lose weight. It always happens, because that's just how science works. That's the laws of how this works. However, even with that knowledge, I know this knowledge, we still run into America. Everybody's extremely overweight and obese, and it's not because we don't have the knowledge. Oh, you mean to tell me the secret was eating fruits and vegetables and watching my intake? I mean, everybody knows that. When I was 19, I dropped 35 pounds in a summer, and I did it by diet and exercise. It's not difficult conceptually, but the following through and having somebody holding you accountable, because a lot of these things we know how to do it. Like, I know how to get sober. I just don't drink and I don't do drugs. That's how you get sober. That's all there is to it. I mean, if you take out all the psychology and things behind it, and that hole on the inside that you're filling, you take all that out, the black and white. If you just don't do drugs and just don't drink, you will be sober. And same with entrepreneurship. If you write down your goals and you put together a plan on how to implement them and you follow through, like you said with your book, writing the book, that was part of the issue of writing the book. But then once you had written it, then your brain got in the way and the emotions start getting in the way. And that's where you needed people on the outside saying, keep going with this. This is something great. And I had glanced the reviews on Amazon. It was all 5 stars and one person gave you a 4-star. So who's the dead man that gave it a 4-star?
No, I actually, someone came on and gave me a 3-star. And I want real feedback. But I also want you to read my book. Don't go and just leave me a review because you don't like cold showers. Like, read the book from cover to cover. And then if you don't take the cold shower, okay, fine. I wrote the book for behavior change, so you take the cold shower. If you read the book and you think it sucks, tell me that. But at least tell me you took the cold shower. Like, at the end of the day, it's like, you can knock my writing, my very first book. Sorry, I wasn't perfect on my first book for you. You can knock my book, but it doesn't negate the fact of something that you still haven't tried that may be something that you're holding in contempt prior to investigation. Absolutely. That may actually be something that kickstarts your diet, that kickstarts those habits, that kickstarts your meditation practice, that kickstarts something you haven't tried in 2019 that you need to do. So, that's my challenge. Leave any review you want, but please tell me that you at least took a cold shower and you gave it. I have challenges in my book: 7-day challenge, 30-day challenge, 1-year challenge. Okay. And the 7-day challenge is definitely the easiest challenge you can do. And I've had countless people do 7-day challenges and 30-day. Most people do 30-day challenges, but I guess that's just my point. Like, I remember I did read a review once. It wasn't on Amazon. It was another thing. And it was like, this book is short and it's repetitive. And then they gave me a low review. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. People don't read books. So I wrote a short book and it's repetitive so you can get the message. So thank you. Compliment, even though you gave me 2 stars. Like, so it's just like, it's funny. Human nature is funny, but I'll just say that, at the end of the day with the cold shower book, the idea is to get you to change your behavior.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jesse, I think it's been great having you on the show. Do you have any closing notes where people can find you, things that you want to challenge listeners to do in order to get to the next level in their life, other than, of course, buy your book? That's a given. Anything else?
Yeah. I mean, you can find me on my website. So entrepreneursrecovery.com. There you can learn about my mission. You can learn about my facilitation process. And then I just launched a company this month for training. It's a training company. It's called Entrepreneurs Recovery Facilitation. If you have more questions, feel free to email me, jesse@jesseharless.com. And that's really where you can find me. Closing takeaway message for listeners. I mean, I think this is a great podcast. Yeah, I'm really fired up after listening to you and just being on here. But I would say, like, besides building your recovery team, like, find those 5 people. Besides that, ask yourself this question: what is really, really holding you back from living the life that you dream of? What is really holding you back? If you're in recovery, you have some time under your belt and you're feeling stuck, what's really holding you back from doing the things that you need to do, that you have inside you, that you've put off, that can ultimately lead to that place of fulfillment? And so what is that? What is it? And if it's because, oh, you know what? Well, I could have wrote that book, or I could have started that business, or I could have started those paintings. If it's simply that, well, then hire a coach. Okay. Find someone to keep you accountable. Like, get on it, get an accountability person. Okay. Just ask someone to keep you accountable to your goals and start doing it today. Stop wasting time. It's February. We're in February already. Okay. You got 10 months. Okay. To get this goal done. And that's my challenge,
I love it. Well, Jesse, thank you so much. It was great having you on the show, and we'll keep in touch. I'm sure listeners will probably want a round 2 after this one.
Thanks, Andrew. Pleasure.
All right. Bye.